Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor Sikkema, Seth Galina here with you guys. Another quarterback showcase episode of the show. We got an exciting one where, I'm putting on my finest game show host coat, and we're going to play a little game of stick or twist for some of these second-year quarterbacks that we have in the NFL here. Before we get into it, Seth, how you doing, my friend?
Who is the game show host you've looked up to the most in your life? I feel like I know you well, and I'm gonna say that you probably, given that you're in content, you're in the media, there was probably some sort of game show host or talk show host that you looked to and said like, I kind of would like to do that.
I mean, I think the game show host that I actually watched the most as a kid growing up was Regis with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Like, I think that was actually the one that I watched the most. If you count, do you remember the show Global Guts?
I do not.
Man, this breaks my heart. This breaks my heart, Seth. Anybody out there who's watching or listening to the show who remembers the show Global Guts, it's sort of this, like, it's a game show, but it's more of like this action game show with these kids where, like, they have to do all these challenges and these, like, athletic events, like swimming events and jumping events and all this kind of stuff. Anyways, Mike O'Malley was the game show host of that. So, honestly, like, because I was big into sports growing up, Mike O'Malley's my real answer, but my standard answer for one that everybody would understand is probably Regis for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Do you have one? Do you actually have one?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
That's a good question. I've never thought of this before, actually.
Do you remember? So they made a remake of it, but there was the original Deal or No Deal. The remake had Wayne Brady as the host, but there was an original one.
Howie Mandel.
No. This is like the 70s or 80s.
Oh.
And anyways, I saw some old episodes of it, and I don't remember who the name of the host, but he was really good. And I don't know what it was like on the remake, but it would be like, it was good. It was like they would have like, do you want the car behind door number 1, or like the boat behind door number 2, or the secret mystery behind door number 3? And then they would all pick door number 3, and it'd be like literally like a flock of geese. You would get a flock of geese. So anyways, that's my number one game show of all time.
Wait, how is your number one game show not Cash Cab? Because you were on Cash Cab. Well, you were on.
That's right.
You were on Canadian Cash Cab, right?
I was on more than that. I was on French Canadian Cash Cab.
French Canadian Cash Cab. Wait, yeah, how's that? That's got to be your answer. Whoever was the host of French Canadian Cash Cab's got to be your answer.
Yeah, Alex Barrette is the host, and we did it all.
That sounded way too French and Canadian. That sounded way too French and Canadian. That's a fake name.
We won $400 Canadian dollars. We did it all in French. The question we got wrong was us being very stupid, and the funny thing is we had to take they dropped us off at a random location because it's all fake. They dropped us off at a random location. We had to take an actual taxi cab back to work that day.
So part of the $400 had to go into your fare just to get back into the city.
It's like we worked downtown Montreal. Like it was like $70 just to get back to downtown Montreal.
You would think that they'd budget that into the money that they would give you, but I guess not. So that I think that has to be your first day. I'm going to be honest with you. So our content director came up with this idea to do this show today, sort of as a game show, and he's like, "Why don't we play stick or twist?" And my first answer to that was, "What is that? Stick or twist? I've never heard of that before." I had to Google it, and apparently it's a card game where you can either obviously stick with your cards or you can twist, which means you grab a new card. So I never heard of that before in my life. So we're in uncharted waters. I don't even know how to host this game show. We're just going to be flying by the seat of our pants over here.
Let's let the people understand something.
Yes.
You are American. I am Canadian.
Yes.
We're both North American. Our content director is neither. Our content director is from across the Atlantic Ocean. So they got stuff going on there that I don't even want to think about. Okay, they're a little off there. Okay.
We're a worldwide company at PFF. I think people don't realize that. We cross borders here with this company to give you guys the football content that you love. So That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna give you some football content that you love. Let us know if you've ever heard of this game before. If you love this game, and here's a free comment here for us. Let us know who your favorite game show host is. And if you don't put me after this episode, I'm gonna be really sad for my entire Thanksgiving holiday, and you guys are gonna feel really bad about it. So we're talking about 3 quarterbacks. We're gonna play stick or twist. Bryce Young, the Carolina Panthers. Anthony Richardson of the Indianapolis Colts, and Will Levis of the Tennessee Titans. We're going to talk about how these guys have been playing as of late. A couple of them have actually been benched. And then we're going to talk about, are the teams going to move on from these guys? Have they shown us enough at this point? What do we want to see moving forward? That's the game that we're going to play here. If you guys want to see all of the statistics that we're going to talk about here on the show, best way you can do that is getting a PFF Plus subscription. And what a wonderful time of year it is to be able to do that. If you use the promo code SCORE35, you're going to get 35% off any PFF Plus subscription. It's not just for this time of year for the premium stats, though. It's also for fantasy football season, draft season, free agent season, everything, man. Go get a PFF Plus subscription. You'll be able to see so much information and become a smarter football fan and be able to do things like win this game show, which we are about to start right now with Bryce Young of the Carolina Panthers. Bryce Young, albeit in a loss, went toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes and didn't blink, not once. 21 for 35 in this game, 261 passing yards, 1 passing touchdown. He had 4 big-time throws versus single coverage and a 90.6 passing grade against single coverage. This looks like a new Bryce Young, man. So, look, Bryce, not a good rookie season, all right? Admittedly, it was not a good rookie season for the number 1 overall pick last year. 2 games into this year, it's a new coaching staff, a new coach, and Bryce gets benched. He does not look capable sort of mentally the way that he needs to approach the position and play the game at a very high level, and so he gets benched for a couple of games. Andy Dalton comes in. Andy Dalton ends up hurting his thumb, so they end up going back to Bryce Young, and it sort of allowed him to now grow a little bit more into what we have seen this past week, which, Seth, in my opinion, was his best game as a pro. I thought this was his best game. This was the closest to Alabama Bryce Young that we have seen yet from him in the NFL. So, my question to you, stick or twist with Bryce Young when it comes to next year, because Carolina Panthers probably going to be picking in the top 5 again, might have an opportunity to get a quarterback. You sticking or twisting? What are you doing?
Still don't know what a stick is.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know either. Are you handing him a stick, or are you guys doing the twist? I don't know. Like, which one are you doing?
I'm handing Bryce the stick.
Isn't speaking of game show, isn't like Survivor, don't you get like an immunity stick? Like, don't you get like that's okay, so are you handing him the immunity stick, or are you getting sucked up in a twister and you getting thrown all the way out of there? Which one?
I'm handing Bryce the immunity stick.
Okay.
He is safe for another week.
Okay. Voted
on NFL Survivor.
That would actually be a good. There's something there. We could flesh out this idea. Okay, all right.
I think we have to do NFL Survivor, and we have to go back to NFL QB therapy. That's our next. That's our next one. But all right, Bryce Young, I agree. Best game as a pro. Just one of the better games of this weekend, maybe the best game of this weekend for a quarterback. And I agree. Look like the Bryce Young from Alabama. There was one play in particular that I really liked, and it showed off 2 separate things, I think, which was the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know why I said it like that. Kansas City came out, they ran cover 0, they blitzed everyone. He had like a 12-yard out route to David Moore, I believe. It was either David Moore or Adam Thielen. I think it was Moore. And so man-to-man, no safety, full blitz. And he's able to kind of just like buy himself time in the pocket by, he can't step up in the pocket because of the blitz. So he buys himself time just by like kind of backpedaling in the pocket another 3-4 yards. So he's making the throw longer. He's under pressure, but he's able to get that ball off accurately on time and in stride to his receiver, who got like an ounce of separation, but that was enough. And then the ounce of separation was really a lot of what his great throws were. He was willing to put the ball into like on time into receivers that he had to trust were going to get that separation. Because if they were not separating, like David Moore, had, it feels like once a year or once every 3 years we get a David Moore 75-yard game. Adam Thielen, obviously an old man receiver, can still play a bit but lacks some separation and speed. So there were tight windows that he had to throw to right now, because if you wait a beat longer, those are not they're not separating anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He did that the whole game. He did that. So and there were some really nice throws over the shoulder on the sideline. I thought this was really good. I think with Bryce, I said this to you before, like I want to give him a year where he has a full offseason with the same coaching staff, the same offense. Now, I assume that'll happen in Carolina, but with David Tepper and like his temperament, like I don't know for sure. I think every week we have to reevaluate how David Tepper is going to handle his head coach next year. But I would love to see another year in the same system, because with Bryce Young, so much of this has to happen before the snap. He showed a lot of playmaking ability at Alabama after the snap, getting away from trouble. There's a chance that comes back. We saw some of it. We've seen some of it. But really for him, it's going to be before the snap stuff. So he needs to be in a system where he's with the same offensive staff for 2 years in a row, and then we can get a real opinion on him.
I agree. I'm also handing him the immunity stick. I was really impressed by how he played this game, in particular how confident he was to throw against single coverage and close single coverage, sort of like what you mentioned. Those first 2 games that we watched at the beginning of the year, I can't remember who he played. What was it? It was the Saints and, man, who else was it against? Can't remember what the second game of the season was. But anyways, in those 2 games, he just, whenever he was throwing against single coverage, you could tell he was so terrified to turn the ball over. It was either too short of a pass or the wide receiver never had an opportunity to get it because the defensive back also was never going to have an opportunity to get it, or it was one of those situations where he throws it over their head and you can like kind of make yourself feel good and say, oh, well, either my receiver got it or nobody got it. Well, nobody got it, and nobody was getting it too often. He wasn't really giving his players a chance with how he was throwing and the confidence level that he was operating under through the first couple of games of the season. I think it has looked very different over the last couple of weeks, in particular this past week, when he was able to attack single coverage, attack those like small throwing windows, not a ton of separation. And another thing I love from Bryce Young, middle of the field stuff, man. Everybody, like, he is short, okay? I'm not breaking any news by saying that. And a lot of people looked at Bryce Young and like, man, he'll never be able to attack over the middle of the field because he can't really see over the offensive line. It's going to be an issue for him. He's going to have to move outside of the tackles if he wants to go back and try to attack between the hash marks and between the numbers. And there were plenty of opportunities in this game where he attacked in between the numbers and he attacked true middle of the field in between the hashes. And I think that was a really important part of his game that you wanted to see, because that also is a big hint at confidence. Like, that is also showing, okay, this is progression. He's not afraid to put the ball over the middle, which some quarterbacks just aren't comfortable doing so, but Bryce Young is, and he was when he was at Alabama. So it's good to see a little bit of that that we saw against the Kansas City Chiefs. I will say, there are still some layup throws that he missed, either, some throws to the flat, some quick out routes, some speed outs, things like that, where he could have made his life easier. You mentioned, okay, he snaps the football, he's looking, he's extending the play a little bit, he's retreating, he's making the throw a little bit longer, but he normally is making the throw the way that he needs to. That was sort of an Alabama tendency that I hope that he would get a little bit better at the NFL. You don't always have to retreat and make the throw longer. You could sometimes you could more often hit hot. You hit your receivers hot. And he has not done that as much as I've wanted him to do at the NFL level. I still think that's another step in his progression. And I even thought that against Kansas City, there were a handful of throws where it's like, okay, you attempted a more difficult throw, and sometimes they were complete. And I go like, all right, well, I want to give you credit for that, certainly, but you could have made this a little bit easier on yourself by getting rid of the football to the player who was open within the first second and a half of the play. And I think that's sort of what's next for him. You mentioned that he's got to be able to win pre-snap. He's got to be somebody who's got to be able to see the defense, the way that it's lined up, how they're going to rotate, and understand what's going to happen once he snaps the ball. That, to me, is coming. And the more difficult part of his job playing quarterback, I thought that he showed much more improvement against the Kansas City Chiefs. So it was at home. Obviously it's a team that's the defending champs. So if you can't get motivated to play the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, you're just never going to get motivated. So a lot of the things sort of went in their favor for this team to be able to play well, but they did, and Bryce did. And I think that's really important. I would love to see him continue to build off of that going into next week. But with, what does Carolina have? 5-6 games left of the season. I think 6 games left of the season. To me, we're in a situation where even with them getting a top 5 pick, I'm with you. I'm sticking with Bryce moving forward. And going into next year, so that I can use that top pick in the first round to either pick in the top 5 and get a really good football player, or maybe even trade back, because Carolina now needs a lot of different pieces. And so if they end up getting the number 2, number 3, shoot, even number 1 overall pick, you might have an opportunity where you can trade back out of that spot and get not as high of a price as we've seen in years past, with the quarterback class not as touted as it has been previously. But still, you can get a pretty penny by moving back a little bit. You could probably get yourself an extra first-round pick, which I think would be good for Carolina. So I agree with you. I'm sticking with Bryce. Anything else before we move on to the next one?
Yeah, my caveat is that they haven't, like, these 3 games that they've won in a row, which is great. Happy for them. Haven't played against really good defense, or specifically a good pass defense. Saints are generally not good pass defense wise. The New York Giants are very bad, very, very, very bad pass defense wise. And the Kansas City Chiefs over the last 3 or 4 weeks have also been very, very bad in their pass defense. Basically since Jalen Watson went down, their cornerback opposite of Trent McDuffie, they've been really bad. That's a whole story for another episode. But like, the Chiefs defense is bad. They play against a Bucs defense this week that, like the Chiefs, are gonna blitz you. And Bowles is going to blitz him, and I'd love to see him have another game. Like, it's not a good Tampa Bay pass defense at all. So, like, let's see if we can put together another game. Again, the caveat is, like, not great pass defenses that they're going to see in this 4-game stretch. But if they can do it again and maybe get another win, like, hey, like, let's at least put them together, string some games together,
right?
Whether or not it's a good defense or a bad defense.
Right. You said that they had won 3 in a row. They won 2 in a row. Didn't beat
2 in a row, right?
Yeah, didn't beat the Chiefs. But honestly, like, I know there's no moral victories in the NFL. Like, It kind of felt like a moral victory. Like, if there was ever going to be a moral victory, it actually felt that way for Carolina, who actually showed some life there. But you're right, Tampa's defense. I mean, there are times when it's looked like one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. There are times when it's looked good. It just kind of depends how they, pair things with the blitz, and they're getting a little bit more healthy. So we'll see. Obviously, we're able to play well against Tommy DeVito and totally limit that Giants offense. It is a really interesting test to take against a divisional foe, I should say, in Tampa Bay this week. So that'll be something that we got to look out for. Before we get to the next one, before we get to the next sticker twist, got to talk to you guys about the staple of every outfit. It's a good hat, right? I mean, like, sometimes you pick up a hat and it's like, oh man, okay, this is my go-to hat. I love this hat, but you pick it up and it's like, it smells. It's like it's got some sweat stains on it. You can tell like it's kind of falling apart. You don't have to worry about that with Melon hats. Melon hats are so durable. They are 5 times more durable than every single hat. They look great. They've got all different types of styles, and no matter what you are using a hat for, they got you covered. If you mainly are wearing a hat to work out, they got a couple of different styles. One that's a little bit more waterproof, which means, you can sweat a little bit more in it and you can clean it and it'll be totally fine. Or, if you're jumping in a pool or a lake or something, they've got a hydro collection that's great for you. If you're somebody who, I like to wear a hat to work, it's sort of the same thing. You know that it's going to be very durable and it's going to last a long time for you. If you use a hat mainly to, go out and be social and everything, they're great. They look great. They look nicer than most hats you're going to find. So you feel like you're not like dressing down if you put on a hat or anything like that. It actually complements the outfit. They've also got a lot of different collections for different times of the year. For example, it's getting cold, so the thermal collection will help keep your head warm no matter where you are living. They are durable. You can wash them. They look as good as the day that they took it out of the box. Mine certainly does. I've had mine for over a month, and I'm wearing it all the time, and it looks just as good as the day that I got it. Great comfort and fit, sizing to fit all different types of head shapes. If you're looking for the world's most durable hat, look no further. Go to melin.com. That's Melin, melin.com, and put these hats to the test yourself. You're going to love them. Anthony Richardson is the next contestant here on Sticker Twist. Anthony Richardson this past week against the Detroit Lions, 11 for 28, 172 passing yards in this game, 77.9 passing grade. He had 3 big-time throws, 2 turnover-worthy plays, and once again, a very high average depth of target of 14.1. We have talked about Anthony Richardson previously on this show. Obviously, it was big-time headlines when he was benched and then him coming back in. He's had 2 games now since he has been reinserted as the starting quarterback. And so moving forward, if you are making your plans for next year for the Colts, stick or twist with Anthony Richardson. What do you got?
Anthony Richardson also getting the stick of immunity.
Okay.
So he's safe another week.
Okay, safe another week.
Maybe this is something that we're just going to say every week of the Anthony Richardson era. They should have thrown for like 400 yards in this game.
So they had, I'm glad that you brought that up because I got the stats for this one. Jim Aiello, who covers the NFL for The Athletic, he tweeted this out. So I saw this from him, and then I looked it up myself. Anthony Richardson and the Colts in general, they had 10 penalties in this game for 75 yards, okay? So that was 10 penalties for like 75 like penalty yardage. Beyond that, though, they had gains of 20 yards, 21 yards, 19 yards, and I think the other one was like 31. That were massive gains that were then totally taken back. So even without the penalty yards, they had those gains specifically in the passing game that were negated. If you go to some of those plays, I mentioned he had 172 passing yards officially in this game. He had 251 passing yards if you include the no plays that were taken away from penalties. Almost 175 yards. That's crazy to have that much unrealized passing yards when you completed those passes, but it was taken back out of penalties. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I had some stats for it.
It's like, but again, are we going to talk about this every week? Because is it, whether it's a penalty, whether it's an overthrown ball, Alec Pierce should have a 90-yard touchdown catch in this game, and it's overthrown. And again, saying maybe that's just what we're going to be talking about, and maybe it'll never click in the way where you are having enough of these explosive plays where it's okay to have some the issues that he'll probably just have, like the accuracy issues and stuff, but you're hitting enough of the explosive plays. Like you can't miss Alec Pierce when it wasn't that difficult of a throw to be honest. The one I'm thinking about to Alec Pierce. And maybe that's where we are, but like there's a lot of good here. And you know, they play against a Lions team that stops the run at an elite level. So that is something that they need to rely on at this point, which is Jonathan Taylor. When Jonathan Taylor and the running game can't get going, and they have O-line issues. Quentin Nelson had probably one of his worst games as a pro. So like, we're sticking with it because they're just, you look at it and you're like, maybe it's a Shane Steichen thing, and Shane Steichen is really good as a coordinator. So, but we're sticking with it because there's too much good here, or too much potential good on the field right now. Maybe it never gets realized, and that would be the case for a lot of quarterbacks who get drafted high. But there's just too much potential good on the field for me to put him in the twister.
Yeah, the pocket presence I think needs to improve for him. Specifically, I think he needs to anticipate his pocket movements a little bit better to give himself the ability to set up correctly, make throws that are more fundamentally sound, more closer to an ideal throwing motion, all the way from his footwork through his release. And I think that he does not do that right now because he's so damn talented. And it's also the reason why you can't give up on him, because there were throws in this game, because there are throws in every single Anthony Richardson game that he has ever played where his arm just gets him out of trouble. And he has the ability to, whether it's throw the ball away or like fire it out of bounds and not have to take a sack, or the fact that, okay, he's not seeing things as quickly as he needs to, and all of a sudden, like, oh, I recognize that wide receiver is open just as the defensive tackle is coming right to me to hit me. Let me pull my arm to the side, just go, whoop, and the ball just goes 50 yards down the field almost on a rope. Like, that's the type of arm talent that we're talking about here. And it's so difficult to give up on a player that has that type of arm talent. And when you talk about, the lack of just touch and accuracy, I think that it really is because you think about how green Anthony Richardson is as a player. He started for 1 year when he was at the University of Florida. He didn't really play before that. He was totally a package player. He didn't really get in the game. So you have 1 year of him as a starter at UF. You have 4 games of him as a starter last year, and now it's whatever this year was. So it's kind of hard to think that this player would be more fundamentally sound than he is right now. He's honestly like right on track. And I think that people don't like, if we're being completely honest, what Anthony Richardson is right now should probably be as like a junior in college. And like he should be about to have his like redshirt senior year right after that before he goes to the draft. It shouldn't really be year 2 in the NFL when you think of all the experience and the lack of experience that he has had, and you sort of appropriate the timeline a little bit. If you think about it, okay, if he went to a school that was going to start him pretty early, if he was more of a highly touted recruit, he gets out of high school, he probably redshirt his first year, probably maybe be a package player's redshirt freshman year, but then like redshirt sophomore, okay, you're a full-time starter. Redshirt junior, okay, you're a full-time starter. Maybe you make the jump to the NFL, but if not, maybe you got a full third year and you go redshirt senior year, and then at that point in time, what's he going to be like 23 years old, 22 years old, whatever the timeline is for how old he is right now. That would be like his rookie season, except he'd have 3 years under his belt as a starter. Now, he just doesn't have that. And I say all that not to make excuses for him, but to say we got to understand where he is in his growth, in his timeline, with him being a really young quarterback and not having a lot of experience. So to me, a lot of Anthony Richardson's issues stem from the fact that he just has not played a lot of football. Yeah, of course he doesn't have this repeatable throwing motion. Of course he doesn't necessarily have the accuracy and the touch on all this stuff. It's because right now he's playing backyard football still in a lot of ways. Now, I think that he has gotten better. He's gotten more structured. I think we see that more from him, and I think over the last 2 weeks you've seen a lot more consistency in that area. But to me, it is more of he's just got to play more. We sound like broken records, but he's just got to play more. He's got to get the pocket presence down a little bit more. And in particular, I don't just want to say things without being detailed in what I'm saying. When I say pocket presence, I'm not just talking about avoiding pressure. I'm talking about moving in the pocket so that you're not doing things to say, well, it doesn't really matter if I don't have a platform to throw because I can get the ball exactly where I need to because I know I have the arm strength to do it. Move a little bit, have a little bit better anticipation, put your foot in the ground, and make a fundamentally sound throw. That's what I want to see a lot more of from him. And I feel like we've seen a more controlled Anthony Richardson over the last 2 weeks, but that was the biggest issue once again for me this week is like, I just want you to have intention with how you are moving around the pocket and not settle for off-platform throws as much as you do just because you know you can get away with it. So that's where I'm at with Anthony Richardson, who I also agree with you. I'm totally sticking with this guy. He has a talent ceiling that very few quarterbacks have. He's just got to get the consistency part down. And you'd be doing a disservice to yourself without letting him play it out for at least another year. So I'm giving him at least another year after this.
Yeah, I look at just to piggyback on what you're saying about where he is in his development. Like he's just turned 22. Well, just like 6 months ago, he turned 22. He's not, he's like, this is his age 22 season and it's his second year in the league. Like that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think with confidence, I think about he goes and plays a regular season with Florida as the starter, like you said, 1 year. You should get the opportunity to go spend an off season as a college quarterback after your first season starting and gain some confidence and really understand the offense that they were running there at the time. And then get a second year where you're like, hey, I'm the man. I'm like, I feel good. Yep. I feel confident. Instead, you go back to zero as an NFL player, where it's like, so like Joe Burrow had 2 years of first of all, Joe Burrow was like older and he had 2 years of experience. He went to LSU, had definitely an above average year in the first year at LSU. And then obviously we know what happened the second year at LSU, but that off season was so important for Joe Burrow and I would imagine he'll think about that offseason for the rest of his career because I think it's led into how good he's become as an NFL quarterback. Anthony Richardson didn't have that. He went back to 0 after one season, and one, like, again, it was like an average season. They weren't great that year. So you just wanted to see that another year as a college quarterback. He decides to come out. Great. I'll never ding a guy for wanting to come out and play professionally. But it restarted the whole process. So at least, yeah, look, he's got it. Shane Steichen's not going to get fired. He's going to get another year with Shane Steichen, who, like I said, I think is very good. They can hopefully find another receiver who could really, really play. I like the pieces, but I don't love the pieces, especially at the receiver position. And you're hoping that, like you said, like the pocket stuff, he's not going to take a lot of sacks. Like you said, it's not like that. It's just like, can he stay out of trouble? And a lot of that is not just the pocket stuff. It's like, and I know Shane Steichen's not ready for this yet, but like, can we create a quick game passing offense sometimes where, hey, we can just take the snap, throw the ball, 2.3 seconds, get it out accurately. And they're not ready for that yet. But when all your throws are these deep passes and these deep concepts, then you're going to get into more trouble, especially if the offensive line is beat up like it's been. But yeah, I mean, like I'm on board. It's so fun to watch. There's a lot of big plays. Again, a lot of potential big plays every time you watch them. And honestly, like, they're playing against the Patriots team this week that can give up some big plays. Like, there's big plays to be made against this Patriots team, and I think they're ripe for Anthony Richardson to have a big game.
I mean, think about these multi-year starters that we had at the college level, and think about if they went pro after just their first year as a starter. Think about Jaden Daniels. Think about C.J. Stroud. Think about Michael Penix. Think about Bo Nix.
Jaden Daniels was not good.
No.
State.
And think about Jaden Daniels leaving after just that first year with him as a starter at LSU. We're not talking about the same player at all.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you talk about some of the best young quarterbacks in the game. If you were to take them after their first year of starting into college into the NFL, you bring up a great point. You're starting over at 0. You don't get that confidence, which is just unbelievably important for these quarterbacks, obviously. So it's just something to remember with Anthony Richardson. I know we sound like massive Anthony Richardson defenders, but to me, I think that it's logical that you give this guy all the chance in the world. I think that you're letting Anthony Richardson play out basically his entire rookie contract. Unless it totally nosedives, it's just hard for me to like give up on a player like this. So I'm with you. Before we get into our last quarterback, who I think that there is actually a little bit more of a debate for, we'll see where we end on either side of that coin. If you're looking for the best way to win huge prizes during one of the best NFL weeks of the year, look no further than DraftKings, an official daily fantasy partner of the NFL. This Thanksgiving, you can play for free for a $1 million top prize. That's right. Any customer, new or existing, can play for free and get the $1 million top prize with their next $5 deposit. We got some good matchups, obviously, coming up on Thanksgiving. One of the ones I'm looking for, Miami Dolphins taking on the Green Bay Packers. Miami Dolphins, passing offense, kind of, coming together here, playing a lot better, a little bit more explosive. They're going up against a struggling Green Bay cornerback group. I know Green Bay's got some good safeties, but they got some corners that they can attack. Jalen Waddle's playing really well. Tyreek Hill's playing really well. Just something to think about. That's all I'm saying. Make it a really happy Thanksgiving with DraftKings. All customers can download the DraftKings app and use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF to play for free, to have a shot at the $1 million top prize only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. If you've got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or just text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. 18 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. Eligibility restrictions do apply. Void where prohibited. Minimum $5 deposit required. Reward issued as $5 ticket for November 28 Fantasy Football Millionaire. The last one is Will Levis, the Tennessee Titans quarterback. Will Levis has been in and out of the lineup, for injury more than him necessarily being benched. Although, his performance has certainly been pretty up and down. This past week in a win against the Houston Texans, he was 18 for 24, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. What do we think about Will Levis? We see it there, 64.6 passing grade. He had the 2 big-time throws, 1 turnover-worthy play, and a very high 86.4 adjusted completion percentage. A lot of people looked at Will Levis and they were like, nah, he's trash. Get him out of there. He's got no hope. And this is why you give guys a little bit of time, because sometimes they can give you games like this. What'd you think about Will Levis? And you give him the stick of immunity? Are you twisting? You grabbing a new quarterback for next year? What do you think?
I'm sticking with
Okay.
Will Levis for another year. The problem is that Will Levis plays like he's in a twister all the time. Like that's the problem with Will Levis.
Yes, it is true.
I'm going to be the guy who is always. I mean, you have to be so bad for me not to. And my new motto, like, I'm gonna stick with you until at least after year 2.5. And again, I go back to the same thing we talked about with Bryce Young. Like, let me see Will Levis in an another offseason with the same coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's already on his second head coach and play caller. Give me Callahan for another year and let's see what happens. Let them develop with each other in the system so he knows the ins and outs of the system. I think with Levis, he throws the ball really well. He can get throws off in tight windows. He has some really nice plays where he's like rolling to his opposite hand side and he's still able to use his flexibility to get the ball around accurately. He's accurate. He has a strong arm. He's just like, there's two things with Will Levis. He's always going to take a lot of sacks. Like, he just is not an escape guy in the pocket. That's probably going to be the thing forever with him. So it's like, okay, well, he hasn't really played behind a good offensive line. Now, no matter what, he's going to take a lot of sacks when he gets pressured. However, can we eliminate 6 pressures a game because J.C. Latham developed, because Peter Skoronski developed, because you got a different right tackle, like a better right tackle? Like, can we take away 5 to 6 pressures a game, pressure dropbacks a game, and then we don't have to deal with taking 8 sacks?
Right.
That's the one thing. Again, he's not going to change. Like, he's going to be a guy who takes a lot of sacks. You're hoping that with time, the offensive line gets better, so you see less pressures, and then B, he is able to like see the field better and like kind of be in a situation where we can get the ball off before the pressure comes as well. And the other thing is, we got to stay away from the 3 plays a game that are like negative 5,000 IQ plays. Like, you just can't.
He said that he was improving. He hasn't thrown a chest pass or a underhand pass in like 8 weeks. So he said that he was improving because he did say that at the podium. So.
But then he threw the ball to the nickel. I don't remember who it was, and he got a pick 6. And it's like, all right, well, we can't give the other. Like,
at least it wasn't a chest pass to the nickel.
At least it wasn't a chest pass. Okay, he threw it. He didn't throw it with his chest. He threw it to the defender's chest.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah, it's not good. Still not good. Still technically a chest pass.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I am with him. It's like that's where I don't know. I don't know if you're going to get rid of those 3 plays, because even 1 play a game, it's like, you know, they won the game, I know, but like 1 play and the other team has 7 points. Like, it can't happen.
I think you can,
and it happens all the time.
I think you can't eliminate those, because my biggest gripe with Will Levis right now is his footwork is so damn erratic. I mean, there are times where, now I have watched, like, you know, a training or a hype video or something of Will Levis where, you know, like it's shirts and shorts, you know, it's not in game, whatever, you know, he's hiking the football, the footwork is fantastic, you know, like it's turning the way it needs to, his weight's in the front foot, the follow through is beautiful, and I go like, wow, what a great throwing motion, what a great setup, very fundamentally sound, it makes a lot of sense. You get him in an NFL game, and I understand that, like, it's very easy for me to say this on this side of things than to be behind the offensive line with guys coming after me. What?
You get him in an NFL game, which is what he does professionally.
Correct. Yes. And then when you get him in an NFL game, which he does professionally, and there's plays that I'm watching from even just this past week's tape, I mean, his footwork is all over the place. He's jumping, like the hitch is just like way wider and more exaggerated than it needs to be. I mean, his hips are open. Sometimes his hips are too narrow. And then there are other times where I'm watching him and he'll hike the football and his feet will just stop moving. Like when he thinks he's about to throw it to somebody and then he can't, like the timing's just not quite there, he doesn't stay bouncing on his feet. His feet just like stop. And then, all right, I'm going to throw completely flat-footed and I'm going to throw it like, like sidearmed or whatever and make it happen. If he can fix his footwork to be like what I want Will Levis to do is on repeat, just go watch Joe Burrow film. Just the whole offseason. Just visualize and think to yourself, I am Joe Burrow. Just go watch because Joe Burrow, I mean, his nickname is Joe Cool for a reason. Joe will hike the football, and he is in the pocket. He's on his toes. He's ready at all times, and it allows him to have a very repeatable throwing motion. That's why Joe Burrow is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL when it comes to, accuracy numbers, but also true ball placement. You watch some of even the good Levis throws this past week against the Houston Texans. The ball placement's not there because his footwork is never the same. His lower body is just going crazy. It's like his lower body's like, I got to be able to run at any time. I got to be able to go throw it anytime. It's just there's nothing calm about it. He has to calm down his the lower mechanics that he has in his throwing motion. Just go watch Joe Burrow, man. Joe Burrow, he's just calm, and even when there's pressure in his face, he's like, all right, it's fine, it's cool, whatever. I'm stepping up here. I'm moving a little bit here. But when Joe Burrow does it, it's precise, it's subtle. He does it in a way where he's still able to set his feet whenever he needs to make the throw. Levis is like the second the ball gets in his hand, and if pressure is coming and he's got to move, it's these like exaggerated steps and slides and things. And then all of a sudden, like once he does to avoid the pressure, now his feet are in crazy directions. His hips are way too open. His throws all over the place, and the ball's not going. Even if it gets to the receiver, it's not true ball placement the way that it can be. So for me, I am also sticking with Will Levis because, like Richardson, it's hard for me to give up on a player with this type of arm talent that can get you out of trouble and complete some of the toughest throws in the game. We've just got to calm down. We got to calm down. And Will Levis, he's a very hyped up, energetic guy, and sometimes it's hard to reel guys in like that. But he's got to be able to do it, or he's not good. If he does not calm down his lower body mechanics, he will never be accurate enough with true ball placement to escape these narratives around him about him just not having the consistency he needs as a quarterback. So that's what I think about when I watch Levis's film.
Okay, so we have 3 sticks. Mm-hmm. They all got an immunity stick. Mm-hmm. The question for me now is like, can you rank them in terms of how much immunity they have from you going forward?
Richardson, Bryce Young, Will Levis. That's my order.
I'm probably the same. I think if Bryce hits, it's going to be so fun to watch because he's a smaller quarterback, but he runs around, he makes plays like that. Mm-hmm. So I think it'll be more fun, if that makes sense, like more fun to watch in like this kind of like aesthetic type of way. So I'm kind of on the same, like I put him on the same line as AR in terms of how I'm sticking with them.
Yeah.
Because AR is always going to have that insane measurables that no one, like it's the complete opposite of Bryce, right? So when Bryce hits, it's going to be great because we all love to see like quote unquote underdog. I mean, he's not really an underdog. He was a 5-star recruit and, went to Alabama, number 1 overall pick, but like still like there's a bit of an underdog thing there.
Well, there is now. And like, that's why my order is the way that it is. And think people will be like, well, hold on. Didn't you have Bryce like number 1 overall in that class? How is Bryce not number 1 for you? And the reason why Bryce wouldn't be number 1 for me right now is because I didn't even think that it was possible for him to look as bad as he looked really before like these last couple of games. And I thought that the way that Bryce approached the game, his floor was going to be so much higher than it was for smaller outlier quarterbacks. And instead, basically outside of these last maybe 2 games that we have seen from Bryce, 3 games maybe, since he was just inserted as the starter, I mean, his floor was unplayably low. And I didn't even think that was going to be possible with Bryce Young, but his size and his lack of physical ability became so magnified when he got to the NFL level, much more so than I thought that it was going to be pre-draft, because I thought, yeah, okay, he's not going to be the most physically gifted quarterback in the league, obviously, but how he approached the game was always going to elevate his floor a lot higher. So now I've seen the unplayable from Bryce Young, and that's tougher for me to say, like, yes, okay, you have more immunity than a guy like Anthony Richardson, when Anthony Richardson, physical gifts are never going to be the problem with him. It's just a matter of, can he get as consistent as he needs to? And if you're telling me that both of these guys need to be more consistent in what they do, well, give me the guy that's got the higher talent ceiling when it comes to physical overall. So that's why it's AR for me, and then it's Bryce Young, and then it'd be Will Levis.
Yeah, no, I'm like I said, I'm very close with Levis. Is third. I think that's for sure.
Yeah.
And he has the shortest rope, I think, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there are measurables. There's traits there with Levis.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
He threw like a speed out to the wide side of the field to Calvin Ridley, on the money, on time. So like it's there somewhere. Just, can you do it consistently, and can you do the other things that I talked about? So yeah, I think Levis is the one that I'm more nervous about. But I think I see more of a path for the other two guys for sure.
So let us know what you guys think. Are we sticking, twisting with these three quarterbacks? Are we being way too lenient on them? What do you think with these guys? If you want to see some PFF statistics to help you make your decision a little bit better, Score35 is the promo code that you can use to get a 35% off deal. Black Friday deal that we have over at PFF.com to get you a PFF Plus subscription. That's for a yearly subscription. So obviously it's 35% off, and you get a PFF subscription for an entire year, which is great. It's a really great deal, especially once we get into the offseason. The free agency tools, the NFL draft tools, all the good stuff. You can get that for you right there. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Seth Galina. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the Quarterback Showcase here on the PFF NFL Show. We will see you same time next week. Have a good Thanksgiving, everybody.